My work in social has been about using the tools to get out your business or personal messages to increase your impact as much as possible. And one of my students, my former students, said this statement. He said, "We do some jobs for money and some for the honor and privilege of doing the work. If we get to do both, we're lucky." So I love that so much, I put it on the back of my business card and I printed it. And then to the young people in the room, the students, I encourage you to find work that is, that lets you to do both of this, right? The honor and privilege, and not just for the money. I didn't have just a perfect career. I got to work at the Metropolitan Museum, as you heard, for 3 years. I had the most wonderful time. I learned a lot, and it was the most meaningful work I did. But they were having financial difficulties, and I lost my job. And I went on Twitter, I went on Facebook, and announced that I lost my job. And I said, "Please tell me what to do next." And I gave people a Google form and said, "Give me ideas." And I got some great, wonderful ideas and some awful, terrible ideas from people around the world. About 1,400 people filled in this form. And so what was the worst moment of my life became a global digital hug that I got, and I was so grateful for it to have that. And I write a lot about technology, and I have a newsletter that I just wanted to tell you about. That's sreenet.substack.com. So if you're interested, you can subscribe to it. Throughout my presentation, I'm going to give you names of ideas, tools, technology, platforms, and it'd be good to have 2 columns on a piece of paper or on your phone or on your computer or on your laptop if you have it, or just on your phone. You can have 2 columns: things to know now, things to try now, things to try later. You may want to do that. And now what I do is, after working for the city, I run a digital consultancy called DigiMentors, and we work on helping brands, big and small. We do a lot of work with the UN and various agencies on helping them with their social and digital media. So that's one of the things that we do. So I'm going to spend a minute now telling you about 2 ways in which I look at the world of communications. And first is through this sentence, that the scarcest resource of the 21st century is human attention. How do we get it, keep it, and grow it is the most important thing that any of us can do. And it doesn't matter what the topic is, human attention can help you address or find success in what you're doing. And this was said by the former publisher of the Wall Street Journal. And some of you may disagree, right? You will say, why is the scarcest resource human attention? Why isn't it clean water, clean air, or things like that? And I would say that the way you can get anything done in the world now is through this human attention, and getting it and growing it is really, really important. The second is through this theory I call the 2 footprints. And I believe all of us have 2 footprints. One is our physical footprint. People who know and love our work, who are admirers of everything we do, people who have seen us in action, etc. That's our physical footprint. Our digital footprint is everybody else in the world, the online space. And we, as human beings, spend a lot of time about our physical footprint. How do we make sure we are doing our work well? How do the people who know us see us? How do they appreciate what we do? But I don't think we spend enough time thinking about the digital footprint. And I encourage all of you to think about how you can improve your digital footprint. And some of the things we're going to talk about today are going to be about that. So if you don't think enough about your digital footprint, you're leaving opportunities, money, impact on the table. And that's something for you to consider. So one of the things that I've been honored to do is I work with the Nobel Prizes. They have a foundation and they have a committee, and I work with them. And I said to them, why do you want digital help? And they said, we want more impact. And I said, you're the Nobel Prizes, why do you need more impact? And they said they need more impact because we only think of them twice a year when they announce the winners and maybe during the ceremony, right? But they're the Nobel Prizes, the most important awards in the world. So if they feel they need more impact, what about the rest of us? What else can we do to increase the impact of the work that we do? So this is my theory of the two footprints. So I'm going to share with you here what I call my dirty secret of social media. That almost everyone will miss almost everything you do. We have this idea that if you just put something on social media, everybody will see it. Everybody will understand it, everyone will appreciate it. But the fact is that almost everyone will miss almost everything you do until you make a mistake. And if you're sitting in the back, you may not see it, but I just added a second sentence there, right? Until you make a mistake, then people may not see it. Once you make a mistake, then everybody sees it. What I'd like to do is to talk a little bit about all of us always be learning, is about the importance of learning as you're going about your daily life, right? Like, what are some new skills you can add to the work that you're doing? And so during the pandemic, I decided that I'm going to learn how to use YouTube as a creator, as opposed to just a user, as a consumer of YouTube. And I learned something really important about YouTube, about how hard it is to get followers and build a following on YouTube. I just learned how hard it is, because it's partly because I'm old compared to the young people here. But to get 1,000 followers on YouTube was more work than getting 5 to 10 to 20,000 followers on other platforms. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is that on YouTube, it's almost like you're doing retail, one-on-one, getting one-to-one, getting one follower at a time on YouTube. Whereas on other platforms, it's different. But why do people care so much about who they subscribe to on YouTube and may not care who they follow on Instagram? The reason for that, I think, are two things. One is that when you subscribe to somebody on YouTube, it shows up on your feed in a very particular way that's different from Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. And second, if you connect your YouTube to your TV and you're sitting with your family, every decision you made about who to follow comes on your big screen with your family, and you don't want that, right? So it's a very unusual situation with YouTube versus other channels. But one of the things we're learning is that in 2024, you're going to see YouTube is going to be even more important than it is now. And we think about all the other channels, but there's so much you can do on YouTube and should be doing on YouTube. So I'm sure we have some YouTube creators here, the folks who are creating stuff on YouTube. Yeah. So I encourage you to spend more time doing YouTube. So one of the ways I think about social media is this comment from my student Jim Rosenberg. And Jim said that websites are like your home country, but social media is like your embassies. So so if you think about your website is where you're sending, from your social media, you're sending people back to your home country. And therefore, at a time when a lot of people are critical of websites and say websites are not important, I think they continue to play an important role in what we're doing. So let's take a look at the top social networks at the end of the year. And I'm sorry that you can't all see from where you're sitting, but let me read these out loud, right? So Facebook is 3 billion, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, WeChat, TikTok, Messenger. This is a Chinese platform called Douyin, Telegram, Snapchat, another Chinese, another Chinese, another Chinese, Twitter, and Pinterest. So when you look at this list, what are some things that jump out at you? Number one is that Mark Zuckerberg owns 4 of the top 6 platforms are owned by Mark Zuckerberg. That's one thing. What else jumps out at you? Anybody? In a list like this, somebody forgot to put LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 900 million users, but they forgot to put them on this list. Another thing that jumps out at me is look where Twitter is. So low on this list, right? But Twitter makes a lot of noise, but it's down here. And it's always been the case, even before Musk bought it, that there's just a lot of attention and noise around Twitter, even though it's so far much lower than all these other platforms. So let's talk a little bit about how to master storytelling in 2024. What are some of the things you should be thinking about? So number one is that social media is about storytelling, and you should be doing all you can to tell stories online. It's really important. So a way to think about this is, if you are trying to tell we try to tell stories by giving as broad and big stories as possible, but it's much better to be much more specific and tell small stories. And there's a great writer in the US named Priya Parker, who's Indian, and Priya says that we should all be focused on telling stories rather than focusing on broad themes. So she tells the story of how she went to a funeral, and at the funeral everybody was sitting, crying, and one of the officials got up and came to the podium. And immediately everybody was quiet and listening. And instead of saying anything else, this official started by saying, okay, who parked the blue Toyota in the wrong place, please move it. Here's where the bathrooms are. And give logistical information instead of stories about the person. And that's a really important way for all of us to think about the work that we're doing. So I'm going to tell you a story. And this is in 1981. This is a alley in between two buildings in New York City. And there's a story about a young man who was coming to Columbia University and had to tell his roommate that I'm coming. And he didn't, in those days there's no social media, no Snapchat, no Twitter, no anything. So he sent a postcard that I'm coming at this time. He came, his roommate wasn't there, he was banging on the door and couldn't get in, and so he was really upset. And so he took his suitcase and went in this alley and slept on top of his suitcase, the first night in New York City. And you can imagine how nervous he was. He had come from another part of the US, didn't know anybody in New York, and was so nervous. Now, if you saw somebody banging at your neighbor's house, how would you react, right? Would you have helped this young man? Or would you have said, okay, he's gonna sleep in the alley there? So this is a story, some of you may know this, story of Barack Obama's first night in New York City was sleeping on this suitcase in this alley. And what's fascinating about it is, imagine if you were a neighbor of Barack Obama. And would you have said, oh, Mr. Future President, please come and have coffee with us. Please sleep on my couch. Or would you have called the police or something like that, right? So part of the reason I tell you the story is because it's a great story. But also, we judge people based on how they appear online, and that's a major problem. So an example of that is that if someone has 500 followers, we say, okay, he's worth this much. If someone has 1,000 followers, double of the previous person, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a real problem in the way technology works. I call it the original sin of social media is having these follower counts. And so we judge people based on how many followers they have. And that's a major issue. So same way here, how you would have judged the future president of the United States, we judge them all the time online. When in fact your follower count doesn't say how valuable or interesting or important or influential even that you are. So social media is also about visuals, and how do we get more visuals into what we're doing? And like I told you the story of Obama, you would have loved that story anyway, but it was improved by this visual of where he lived. It's the same way, so always think about what are you doing with visuals in what you're putting on. Social media is also about moments, and how do you capture small moments in time rather than trying to do everything online. So that's something else I think about. Social media is also about trust. How do you trust what you're seeing? How do people trust your content? You know, when they retweet, repost, take your story, take your image and put it on their IG story, that's a level of trust that they are showing in your work and in what you're doing. And then social media is about relationships. How do you build relationships online that will help you in the work that you're trying to do? And then finally, social media is about two more things. It's about generosity. Instead of talking about yourself all day, talk about other people, talk about other institutions, talk not just about how great you are. And finally, social media is about people and how do you get attention to the work of people in what you're doing. So here are some things that social media can do for you. Number one, help you find new ideas, trends, and opportunities. Connect with audiences in deeper ways. Bring eyeballs, traffic, and attention to your work. And help create, enhance, and improve your brand. And I find that most people do one or two of these things. Most people don't do all four things. So if you can think about ways in which you can incorporate all four things, you're going to be more successful on social media. Well, social media also has problems, as you know. You know the term FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. It also gives you what's called tech neck from looking down on your phone all day. Loneliness, and you can also insert your societal crisis here. So we're going to do something together. I want you to know that the way we use our phones, looking down like this, is really bad for our necks. Right? Basically, we have the weight, we have a very heavy head, your skull, you're looking down like this. So somebody who was an expert on neck health attended one of my workshops like this. So she said, please teach everybody how to be safe with their phones. So we're going to do a little exercise. So her point was that you're on your phone like this is really unhealthy. Even holding it up just a little bit will save your neck. Okay, now, here's what we're going to do. If you would all take two fingers like this. Everybody do this, take two fingers. Put it on your chin, right? And then push back. Not up, but back. So you should, like this. Just do that. That'll build your neck muscles so that when you're old like me, you're not like this and in deep pain. So try that again. Just push for 2 minutes a day. She said if you do that, not up, but back, right? 2 minutes a day. If you do that, you'll save your neck. So I want to give you a couple of examples of how social media is hard. Here is an article, a tweet I did, and I got 100,000 plus impressions. I was so excited. I thought I'd get lots of new followers, and I got one new follower. So you have this idea that if you put out great content, people will just follow you. It is just not always the case. Here, for example, I got 225 new followers in one day. So I said, wow, I've got the formula. I'm just going to create this great content. It will be great. Well, that same day, I lost 158 followers for the same content on the same day. Right? So you have this idea that you can get tons of followers based on that. And that's really difficult. By the way, including one of the people who unfollowed me was somebody I helped. I got him a job. I can't even look at the screen, I get upset. So that's the reality of the world and how people use these tools. Oops. So let's talk a little bit about followers. Everybody wants to know how to get more followers. And I say that on social media, it's not who follows you that matters, it's who follows you that matters. Meaning, it's important to have lots of followers, yes, but it's much more important to have influential followers, people who have a lot of followers themselves. So it's great to get thousands of followers, but if you have the right number of people in your industry that you're interested in, that's much more important. That's how I look at the world in what we do. And so, for example, one of my clients is called the UN Refugee Agency, and they have 2 million followers, which is obviously amazing, 2 million followers. But their top 100 followers, so of the 2 million, top 100 followers have 500 million followers. So that gives you a sense, right? This top 100 followers have 400 million followers, right? So what that tells you is that it's great to have as many followers as you can, but really focus on getting influential and people who can who are active in your field to follow you. One of the things that I tell people is that when you're creating content, you know, we heard earlier also somebody was talking about people are just scrolling all day, right? So scrolling, so I tell people create thumb stoppers on your social media, right? As you're going. So what is your thumb stopper going to be? What is an image or a map or a cartoon or something that will accompany your content so that people will stop and read your content? That's what you should be looking at. There are lots of tools. Typorama app is a great tool. There's so many others. This is my wife Rupa. So many thumb stopper tools, and I encourage you to play with them and see what makes the most sense for what you're doing. As we think about kind of AI, you know, Grammarly, is Grammarly popular in Goa? Yeah. So that's an example of kind of early AI for your content, and a lot of people obviously continue to use that. So now I want to spend a little time as we wrap up here to talk about LinkedIn. And I always say LinkedIn is underappreciated. I say it so often that people quote me saying LinkedIn is underappreciated, as you can see. So one of the things that I talk about, that in any business, you know, when you're in institutions, you'll see that social media, communication marketing, every part of a business, you have social, digital comms is really important. So I want you to think about ways in which the work that you're doing can be reflected in this. So now here, I showed you this before, but you can just see that somebody created a list of the top social networks and forgot to put LinkedIn in it. And that's the problem that LinkedIn has, that it's an afterthought in what we're doing, right? So we, I'll walk you through a couple of LinkedIn ideas, but I just wanted to also think for a minute about the other networks and what's happening with each of them. So you know that Mark Zuckerberg wanted to do the metaverse. You remember that? He made such a big fuss about it, and it's already dead. He spent $10 billion and fired 10,000 people after going to the metaverse and then forgetting that he wanted to do that. We've seen how Twitter, all the problems that Twitter has had, and so people are leaving Twitter, going to other platforms, and there's so many other platforms. I know that TikTok is not there in India unless you use a VPN, and TikTok was very successful in India until 63 accounts were taken, 63 apps were banned by the government. But you can see here that companies are hiring people who can make TikTok or Reels on Instagram, things like that. So something to think about for the young people in the room. And with Instagram, you're seeing how it's being used to drive local traffic in whatever you're doing with the Instagram tools. And some tactics and strategy that you can think about. I always tell people, post your best social media content again. It doesn't always have to be brand new stuff, because if so much content you're posting, your best stuff, you can post it more than once. You can also do a lot of behind the scenes content, process content, are things that I encourage people to do. And of course, people are doing so much now on Reels, and live video is also really popular. And thinking about how to use shorts in YouTube, right? YouTube shorts have been hugely successful. As you know, a lot of these tools are kind of imitating each other as they go forward. In terms of Twitter, you know, the pitfalls of it, all the issue problems that are on it, but it's still so powerful, especially as we go into the elections next year. And one of the things I tell people is that NASA, the the space agency in the US, has a very interesting social media strategy. They invite famous people to come and see rocket launches and all of that, but they also bring people who may not be famous but have influence within a community, including high school students and others, to come and watch and treat them as if they're much bigger organizations. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a couple of quick ideas. Number one is that please set up your Facebook legacy contact. Do you know what that is? Who has done this here? Anybody? Everybody should do this. What it is especially for your parents and others, it's a way to designate someone in Facebook to look after your account after you pass. For the young people, they won't care here, but tell your parents and other people. My mother sat in these sessions like this, and I would tell her, please set up your Facebook legacy contact. And she didn't, and she died. And it was a major hassle for us because of all the messages and everything that came in. So please Google Facebook legacy contact, and please designate someone to do this for you and your family. It'll be very, very important. I can tell you from my own experience, so please do that. And the second is managing favorites. We already heard about the algorithm problem, right? We can't control what we see, but there is a way on Facebook to control what you see through what's called favorites. So that's my wife Rupa. And when you go on somebody's account, you click on friends and you can see favorites. You can pick up to 30 different people or brands to be your favorites. So you will see only what you want to see first. Instead of complaining, oh my God, the algorithm is so bad, which it is, it's terrible. Think about adding the people that you want as favorites into your Facebook. It will change your Facebook life. It will improve it dramatically because you're seeing who you want to see first rather than the algorithm itself. So as we wrap up here, I just want to talk about the importance of tools that work both on your laptop and your smartphone. There's so many tools that do that so well, of course. And now, at the end of the year, I always use this tool called Future Me. Has anyone seen this? It's a free tool, futureme.org, futureme.org, and it allows you to write an email to yourself that will show up 6 months, 5 years, 10 years later. And it's pretty amazing. So we do this in my family every December 31st. We write a letter and it comes 5, 10 years later. It's pretty amazing. So you go in, you write whatever you want, and you can choose when you want it delivered. You can choose a specific date, and this letter will come back to your email in that time. It's a really nice way to, just to think about your year, think about the things you're interested in. It's a very nice little thing. So futureme.org is a lovely, we think about resolutions and things like that, but this is really nice. Okay, so before we go to questions, I want to share with you my social media success formula. We think about how our content should be each of these things. How do we make it helpful, useful, timely, informative, relevant, practical, actionable, authentic, generous, credible, brief, entertaining, fun, and occasionally funny. And this is a formula to be successful on social media. And I think for all of us, this is a way to think about what we're doing, right? We often, on social media, we don't do enough of I'm not saying all your posting should be all of these things, but all your posting should be some of these things to be successful. So I'll just wrap up by sharing a couple of thoughts. The first is that we're in a very unusual moment in history where we're already complaining about misinformation, disinformation, and the AI revolution has just started. So imagine what's going to happen with fake content at the scale at which it's coming. We're seeing, for example, it's so easy now to have, with just a little bit of Pushkar's audio, I can have him say anything for an hour. right? I can type up something and in his voice, publish it globally. That's coming, that's already here. Fake video, fake audio. And at the scale at which it's going to happen is going to do great damage to society. So, you know, we will look back at all the all the things happening in social media in 2023 and say that's nothing compared to where it's going. And that's really worrisome, I think, in what we do. The second is we talked about human attention, and you gave me, you know, more than almost 2 hours of your attention, and I'm super, super grateful to all of you. I hope you'll keep in touch. If I can help you with anything, I'd be delighted. Thank you very much, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you. On behalf of the International Centre Goa, and I would like to first thank you, and of course the audience. You have just made it a wonderful, wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you.